All right, here's Giannis blooping one to Lopez, and that'll do it. The Bucks beat the Nets in 7. They do it in overtime. They're headed to the Eastern Conference Final, where they'll take on the winner between the Sixers and the Hawks, who will play Game 7 tomorrow night in Philadelphia.
You know, ever since I've really gotten into the NBA, I've been on a quest. A quest to find the greatest game in my lifetime. The requirements I have come up with include the following. It has to be in the playoffs, has to be between 2 championship contenders, 2 star players each balling out and dueling each other, and intense the whole game with the winner never truly pulling away. It has to have an iconic play, and mostly a winner-go-home game where everything is on the line. Now, obviously, I've seen my fair share of amazing games, some would even be classics, but very rarely does one meet all of the requirements, or at least most of them. I've seen duels, all-time great performances by players, winner-go-home games, 2 championship contenders going at it, and all of the requirements, but at most it's usually only 2 or 3 of those things together. Very rarely is it all in one game. Up until that fateful night, the closest I have gotten was Game 7 of the 2016 Finals, which at the time I hated because I was, and still very much am, a Curry fan. I've come to appreciate it more, but it still pains me a little to rewatch that game. So since I've been praying for another chance at seeing an all-time game with most if not all of the requirements, that day, June 19th, my prayers were answered. Bucks versus Nets in the 2021 NBA playoffs is the greatest game of all time. So let's talk about it.
Go to work. Curry with Tucker right with him. Curry launches a 3. Puts it in again. Shoot. A minute and a half to play. That's a bomb. Oh! Ridiculous.
So before I go on about my thoughts and what I saw from the game, because I have a lot of them, I decided to semi-interview some friends and followers on what they thought of the game. So let me roll the clips real quick. So one of the people I asked, here's his up here, I'll show it and link in the description. He couldn't record, so I'm just gonna read out his response. He was at home watching the game, and his reaction to the Kevin Durant shot is, "What the F is he taking that for?" And something like that was going through his head. And he wanted the Bucks to win, and he was watching it on the TV, and he was happy that the Bucks beat the Nets, but he was really confused why Kevin Durant took that shot, and he's happy the Bucks won the championship. So, thank you again. Shout out this next person. Here's his up here. He was actually a Bucks fan, so I really wanted to know like a Bucks fan perspective and how they felt watching this game. So, here it is.
I was watching the game, and I was definitely rooting for the Bucks. But most importantly, I was rooting for like a good game, you know? Because no matter which team won, they were going to make it to the finals. That was the deciding game. So, I mean, Nets winning the finals, Bucks winning the finals, both would have been a great outcome. I was at my house with my dad watching the game the entire time. I think it was about 2.5 hours. And we were stunned the entire game. The game was so close. And, just the back and forth in the end. And KD's impeccable shot, no matter where his foot was the craziest point I've probably ever watched in a game, other than Aaron Rodgers throwing Hail Marys. During that Kevin Durant shot, I was speechless. I mean, the guy hit a buzzer beater, and the only thing that stopped them from winning that game was his foot was too long and was on the three-point line. I mean, that's probably one of the greatest Game 7 shots in history, up there with Kawhi's Game 7 shot in the 2018-2019 playoffs against the Sixers. I mean, that's the only other buzzer-beating Game 7 shot that won the game for him. when no one could score in overtime. I mean, it was just a back and forth of missed shots and hopes rising and then falling. And then once the Bucks started hitting shots in their defense with Drew Holiday and Giannis just clamping down on Kevin Durant and the rest of the Nets, that was huge. That was key to winning that overtime in that game, even if the Nets were the better team in the end. I was definitely happy with the results as a Bucks fan. We went on to go and win the finals, so I can't complain. I was in Louisiana watching the finals game 6 when they won, so I had a grand old time in my hotel room. But yeah, I was just happy that a team that didn't have someone who had won a championship was going to the finals. I think my favorite moment during that Nets-Bucks series was definitely when Steve Nash hugged Kevin Durant after, I can't remember which game, but that hug where Kevin was standing there and Nash was hugging him as if he had just given birth. I mean, that was the craziest, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen a coach do with his player.
The team I was rooting for the Game 7 was the Bucks, because I am a Hawks fan and I wanted the Bucks to win because I think the Hawks stood a better chance against the Bucks. But even though the Bucks won, the Hawks still lost. Where was I while watching the game? I was in the living room with my brother and dad watching the game. It was very silent in the room. We're all just watching the game, expecting something to happen. And when we all saw the Durant shot, we all yelled in excitement. I wasn't that surprised because since he was hot all game, and I knew he was gonna make it. But still, it was really exciting to see it.
So shout out to those guys for actually answering the questions and stuff. I thought it'd be a little cool thing for this video, so thanks again to those guys. I really appreciate it. But now it's my turn, my experience from the game, and why I truly believe this is the greatest game of all time. So let's get into some of the background and context before the actual game. In this series was predicted to go the distance, and people had the Nets winning still, obviously, since it's Kyrie, KD, and Harden all on one team. But Game 1, Harden pulled the hamstring in the opening minute of the game and would be out for the first 4 games of this series. The Bucks were also shorthanded, but not nearly as much as the Nets, as Dante DiVincenzo was out for the rest of the playoffs. Coming into this series, it looked like a 7-game series since the Nets were dominant and the Bucks looked to finally put it all together as they swept the Heat, who took them out the year previous. Coach Bud looked like a genius and Giannis broke the wall from the Heat. Giannis was also the ultimate weapon against the Nets, as their only deep weakness was their defense, and most importantly their post defense, as it was open all the time with DeAndre Jordan as their best center. So it was a looming feeling around the NBA fans that if the Bucks couldn't beat them, nobody could, especially with the Lakers out in round 1. So to start the series, I wanted the Bucks to win so the finals have a shot at being competitive, which they were, obviously. The first 2 games happened and we immediately questioned our thought process as the Bucks lost both games by a good margin. Game 3 happened and it was really ugly, but the Bucks got it done and also won Game 4 too. Kyrie went down in Game 4 with an ankle injury, so it was assumed it's Bucks in 6, as the great prophet Brandon Jennings once said. Then Kevin Durant happened.
Good crush the defense by Milwaukee. Now Durant fires and hits! With the shot clock running down, he hits!
Durant reminded everyone who the best player in the world was up until his Achilles tear, and the Nets take Game 5. Obviously, down 3-2, I fully expected the Bucks to roll over and die as they had the last 2 runs. But Chris Middleton and Giannis pushed it to 7, and boom, here we are at Game 7 now. The narratives going around during the game were KD can't lead a team, Giannis isn't clutch, Giannis is unskilled, and Giannis' style cannot win. I'm mentioning this now so that you all remember what the narratives were, because we sure love to forget about old narratives and form new ones after that. Anyways, every sport fan's favorite 2 words, Game 7, takes place, and let's get started. So, game time, the game starts, and before I know it, boom, the Bucks go up 6-0 right away after some threes. KD starts off hot and scores 5 straight points, making it 6-5. It's really worth noting that both teams after the 6-0 start looked really nervous. Both wanted to win badly and came out the game looking shaky. Obviously, the nerves went away, but both sides were missing open shots, turning it over, and passing up shots early. Fast forward a bit, and it's pretty clear we aren't getting a good version of James Harden tonight, as he still looks like he's operating on one leg. It's better than Game 5, but still not nearly what the Nets would like him to be. The Nets came out physical, though, to try and make Giannis' life harder. Joe Harris hits a 3 early, so we are all thinking that this is the night we get that Joe Harris game where he hits like 8 to 9 threes. Then Giannis takes momentum back by somehow hitting a 3-pointer and also abusing the Blake Griffin matchup with post play and middies. Now, since Durant is cooking early, it's worth noting that PJ Tucker is struggling guarding him today, and Coach Bud keeps him on Durant when he has last year's MVP and Defensive Player of the Year guarding Blake Griffin instead. That thought crossed my mind for about the millionth time this series. As you see here, Durant hits a tough falling shot, which could have been an and one, and it's obvious now to everyone watching that Durant is not going to miss tonight. It's also worth noting that Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton both start out fine and not showing any signs of Giannis being by himself tonight. And to wrap up the first quarter, the Nets take a 28-25 lead going into the second, and so far neither team has much control over the game. The Nets start out the second quarter looking to gain control of this game, but Pat Connaughton comes in and hits a big 3 to keep that control away from Brooklyn. Then Bruce Brown shows up and decided he wants to dunk on Giannis and gets a putback dunk while also hitting floaters like Trae Young apparently. Giannis gets taken out as he is having a hard time breathing on the court and is already looking kinda gassed. The Nets would display ball movement like they're the 2016 Warriors, and Giannis has to come back in. Meanwhile, KD started really cooking again in the second quarter, and Brook Lopez, of all people, is the one giving Giannis help today and keeping the Bucks alive while Brooklyn tries to run away with it. Fast forward a bit, and Giannis is at the free throw line, and then he airballs a free throw, and then the crowd starts counting for him, so he starts to hit them. Giannis this whole series has been struggling at the free throw line, so it wasn't a surprise, but it's Game 7, so obviously it's a big deal that the star player airballed a free throw. Also during that free throw, Harden is obviously upset with how much time Giannis is getting, as he can't stand him, as we get this hilarious reaction to the miss. When the half comes to a close, the Nets lead 53-47. It's also worth noting here that Middleton and Holiday suck right now. As you can see here, Holiday hits the side of the backboard on one shot. But you know who else sucks? The refs. And they suck for both sides, but especially for the Bucks later on. Another thought crossing people's mind is, where's Joe Harris? As he hits 1-3 and starts sucking again. But don't worry, he'll show up soon, right? Right? The third quarter starts and the Bucks come out firing, looking to take control and end this game now. They go on a 16-2 run starting at around the 2-minute mark of the second. Giannis is still dominating and Brook Lopez becomes Shaq and starts cooking up the Nets, giving us a Brook Lopez masterclass. But the Nets stick around with KD doing most of the work, and Joe Harris gets hit in the face with the ball because he can't catch anymore. After I laugh at him, he hits a 3 and I start to think, this is it. This is the Joe Harris game. And fast forward a little bit and Giannis and KD traded threes for like a 20-second stretch, with Giannis technically winning as KD missed the second 3 he took. Blake Griffin this series has been the X factor and even took the lead for the Nets at one point. Skipping to the end of the third as there wasn't that much interesting stuff, and the Bucks lead 82-81. Nobody has control of this game, and I'm loving it and hoping no one ever does until the very end. The fourth quarter starts, and now the game really gets good. Joe Harris hits his third three-pointer, and it's finally the Joe Harris game. And just kidding, that was the last three-pointer he hit for the season. We'll get on his ass later, but on the other side, Middleton seems to start to get going, hitting tough shots in the mid-range and threes. Giannis, meanwhile, sits for a bit and seems exhausted tonight. I don't know if it's the weight of the whole series or stress of the moment, but he looks gassed before coming back in and dominating. Switching back to the Nets have only one game plan, which is give Kevin Durant the ball, as he has 33 through 3 quarters and is still cooking. PJ Tucker even had a funny interaction with Durant's mom as he fouled Durant and just couldn't guard him. Also, Drew Holiday is really struggling up until this point, while Giannis now decides to really stop playing around and dominates the rest of the game, and then this occurred while struggling for the momentum.
This foul does not get the call. Let's get it back. Durant on the drive. It counts on the foul.
At around the halfway mark off of a steal, Durant gets a pass and dunks while getting fouled, seeming to really swing the momentum in the Nets' favor. Too bad that didn't last long, as this happens right out of a timeout.
Played by Harden on a switch. Middleton with the drive, kicks it out. Holiday for three and hits it.
Drew Holiday would now begin to be great and hit a three to take momentum right back. Then this blasphemous call happened, and I hate the refs now since Holiday was called for his fifth, and on this play where he just jumped straight up in the air while Durant gets the call. We get a stretch of time after that where both teams decide to stat pad their turnover count, and it looks really messy. Fast forward a bit to a made basket, and guess who hits what seems to be the shot to put them over the edge? That's right, James on one leg Harden does this.
And final game. Here's Durant for Harden. One on the shot clock. Harden fires away and scores off glass.
Rated him how bad they could be sometimes, and that shot put the Nets up 101-96 with 3:46 remaining, and seems to be the potential dagger. But come on now, this is the greatest game of all time. It can't end like that. Suddenly, with 2:45 remaining, Giannis does this to tie the game.
Has two. We're down to 2 minutes and 45 seconds as Giannis goes to the rim and draws the foul.
And Holiday puts in a three for the lead at 2:25. Meanwhile, on the Bucks defense side of things, I wanted to die since Brook Lopez's drop coverage off a pick and roll with Durant was killing me. It makes me angrier when Giannis is on Blake instead. Just look at this. It's disgusting. An 8-0 run since that Harden bank shot. Durant would take over and cut the lead to 1 with 1:46 remaining. After Holiday gets fouled, he misses one free throw, and then this happens on the other hand.
Final. Tucker back on Durant. Durant lost it, regains, stolen by Middleton. Middleton on the drive is fouled.
So Chris Middleton puts the Bucks up 4 with 1:05 left. With 40 seconds left, KD cuts it to 2 after this Bruce Brown hustle play, which is being shown right now, gives them another possession. Now, after some offensive rebounds, the Bucks have the ball with 7.9 remaining, 2.1 on the shot clock, and they have a 2-point lead. So out of the timeout, this happens.
All right, here is the inbounds to Lopez. Flips it ahead. And the shot clock runs out with...
Now, I was pretty mad and was really in my fire Coach Bud bag. Brook also screwed up big, so maybe he'll have the game-saving play down the end. I don't know, just to make up for it. But moving on, that was a terrible play by Coach Bud, and I truly believed at that point I would have coached this game better, but I digress. The Nets have the ball with 6.1 remaining, and everyone in the world knows what the plan is. That is, except for Coach Bud, and it still makes me mad talking about it right now to this day, how he didn't stick Giannis on Durant for just this one play. But anyways, out of the timeout, the ref blows his whistle, and then this happens.
All right, the Nets looking to inbound. Jeff Green gets it into Durant. Here is Durant moving on Tucker. He turns, he shoots. Yes! With 1 second remaining. 1 second left. Durant.
That shot had me and my family going ballistic, because what even was that? We thought the Nets just won the game, but in his own words, Kevin Durant's big-ass foot sent them to overtime instead, and you could see the look on his face that he wanted to end it right there, just because he was tired. So after a missed Giannis fadeaway with 1 second left, we're in overtime. Kevin Durant goes into overtime with 48, and this is actually the first Game 7 overtime since the 2006 semi-conference finals between the Mavs and Spurs. Overtime looks like it's going to be a battle, as Bruce Brown scores 2 points right away off of a Joe Harris miss. Then nobody would score for the next 3 minutes. Yeah, so what I'm guessing the Nets' reason was, it was pure exhaustion, as both Harden and Durant played every minute of the game and were obviously gassed, and Harden is injured, so that's also why. And on the Bucks side, it was exhaustion, but I think it was mostly shock. As Reggie Miller put it best, they were up 4 with a minute left, and now they're down 2 in overtime. But they play on, and at 1:53, PJ Tucker fouls out after being frustrated with how Blake Griffin was holding him. Then at 1:25, Blake Griffin fouls out, and then Giannis lays it up to tie the game, who now has 40 points. Yeah, Giannis, the playoff choker, has 40 points in a Game 7, since I know I did not mention him much throughout the game, but he would tend to be the one leading these charges for the Bucks and would have to try and take control. Unreal from Giannis, and nobody will remember it that much as Giannis had 40, since Durant had 48 and had the iconic play. But I'm sure nobody cares now, since Giannis would go on to have arguably the best and most iconic finals performances of all time after this. Anyways, y'all remember how I said Brook Lopez better make up for it after his blunder that led to this overtime? I know a lot of you don't remember this key play, but that's what I'm here for, as this happened.
There's Durant, blocked by Lopez, comes to Harris, who fires, and he's off. Rebounded Lopez.
Brook Lopez had himself the block of the game and the series, blocking Durant's shot, but of course nobody remembers it since Joe Harris missed right after that. Joe Harris, choking, with stage fright. He played awful this series and didn't show up when his team needed him most. Joe Harris is the main reason the Nets are in this position, as if he shot normally, they would win in regulation. But here we are. He misses yet again, and the internet hates the man. Now, as you are looking at some of the memes now. Anyways, Middleton shows up in crunch time and gives the Bucks a 2-point lead with this bucket.
5 seconds left in overtime. 10 on the shot clock. Middleton spinning and hits. Big bucket for Chris Middleton.
Now, with time winding down and the Nets not having scored in 4 minutes, Durant passes to Harden as he is gassed. Then Harden passes it to Durant to take the final shot, since he's hot right now and Harden is also gassed. And this is where I think Steve Nash kind of messed up. He should have called timeout, as nobody knew what they were doing. But then Durant does this, and we see that the tank just ran out of gas.
Off the mark, rebound Durant. Down to 10 seconds left. Harden back to Durant. Guarded by Holiday. Durant for 3. Comes up with an air ball with 0.3 of a second remaining.
Now, to anyone who says LeBron would never or something stupid, just shut up. He would have missed 2 and most likely have airballed, since his stamina is worse than Durant's right now at his age and injury, and is a worse shooter than Durant. So to any hater out there cracking on Durant's airball, go run up and down the court for 2 straight hours, then attempt a 3 over one of your friends or something. Exactly, so shut up, okay? Anyways, after that, the Bucks win 115 to 111. And as we all know, they would go on to win the championship. And I was happy because that meant the finals would be a classic without a super team. This has to be said as KD was literally an inch away from winning a third ring. And yes, the Nets were severely injured, but that doesn't take away anything from the Bucks' performance. So no, it doesn't have any asterisks on it, and neither does any championship ever won in the NBA. So shut up. But now, let's talk about me. What this game was for me and in my life. Getting over a certain event that happened around near the first half of March. So I was struggling with it for all the way until around mid-June. And that day, the 19th, was probably the first really good day I had in a while. And it was only like that for a few days because I got my wisdom teeth taken out, and then the rest of the playoffs, then I had to deal with mouth pain. And everything before then, I had to deal with that stuff. But I digress. That game, and maybe there were 2 games after that, they were the only ones that I got to watch while feeling 100% great. And it was such a great thing to feel to watch a classic like that. A funny thing that happened that day, I actually missed prom because at the time they were selling tickets and planning it. I wasn't feeling all that great. And to be honest, that game I saw just cured everything for that day and pretty much cured everything from that point on. Everything wrong with me was right, and it was the closest thing to perfect I've gotten since probably quarantine started. The game was the first one I got to see and truly enjoy, and was probably the only one I saw in the playoffs that I 100% enjoyed the experience of. The narratives, the legacies, the iconic plays, the memories and moments with my brother and dad, the performances, the memes, the feeling of pure joy with nothing holding me back watching the game I love, and how it all led to a championship run and an all-time story. This is why I truly view this game as the greatest NBA game of all time. So I just wanted to thank the people I interviewed again for making this video slightly better, I think, in my opinion. It means a lot to me that you guys actually helped me out. Sorry to get personal there in the end, but that kind of added to why I view this game as great. It was probably the best feeling I've had since quarantine started, so that was really cool. But thank you again for viewing the video. I got a lot more planned out, and the next one coming out should be about either free agency, this year's free agency, or I went to the California Classic, so I might do a video about what that was like and players I saw and stuff. But this pretty much wraps up the video, so please like and comment whatever you want, like your thoughts on the game or the video. Any tips or criticisms you want, you can leave them down below. And please like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time.